So we're doing something a little bit different today. This is one of my favorite chapters because it's a very interesting chapter, and also I get to demonstrate on my instruments. So this chapter, chapter 10, talks about Western musical instruments, and it starts off with the stringed instrument family. Mainly the stringed instruments are violin, viola, cello, bass, guitar, harp, and guitar. Some people might think piano is too, but piano is kind of in a category of its own. Yes, it does have strings, but we'll talk about piano in a little bit. The reason why strings are so interesting is because it has a whole range of timbres, and we talked about timbres in the previous chapter, tone colors that we can play. And so my main instruments are violin and viola. So today I wanted to just demonstrate for you the differences between the violin and viola and talk about the different kind of tone colors that we can produce with our stringed instruments. So you heard a little bit of the violin. The violin is the smallest in the string family. It's the highest pitch. For those of you who want to see a violin up close, this is basically what it is. It's 4 strings. It's not fretted, unlike the guitar. It's 4 pegs to tuning pegs, and we use the bow to play. And so let me just demonstrate for you just the range in a violin. Again, it's typically higher pitched than the rest of the stringed instruments. So there you have a little demonstration of the violin. I want to get out the viola for you so you could hear the difference between the violin and the viola. So this is the viola, much bigger than the violin. If I put a side-by-side comparison to the violin and viola, you can see, I need to stand back a little further. You can see that there's a difference. A little fun fact about my instruments, they're both made by the same maker. I first was introduced to this maker when a friend of mine played a violin of his, and then I just fell in love with the sound. And so my main instrument is violin, but I actually picked up the viola, and I actually enjoy playing the viola a little bit more. So here, the viola is a little bit, it's structurally the same as a violin, but in terms of tone, in terms of the pitch, it's a little bit lower. So let me just demonstrate for you. So you can see it's a little bit lower in pitch than the violin. So there you have the violin and the viola. I don't have a cello. I don't play the cello. My son plays the bass, and we don't have a bass here, but the bass is the biggest of all the stringed instruments. And so as we get bigger, the pitches get lower. And if you ever go to an orchestra concert, you'll see that the strings are surrounded in the front of the orchestra. So I wanted to just demonstrate for you the various different types of tone color, the timbres that we can play with our stringed instruments. I'm going to demonstrate on my viola just because this is what I have in my hand. In the book, it talks about the different techniques. It starts off with legato. Legato just means long. So if you have something legato, it just means long tones, smooth and connected. The opposite of a legato is staccato, which means very short and clipped. So it would be like. So it's the opposite of smooth and connected. It's very short, it's very cut, very small. Pizzicato is the next thing that they talk about in the book. Pizzicato means to pluck. So instead of using my bow, I'll use my fingers. So you see that just by not using my bow, it has a different element of sound, different element of tone color. The next technique that you can employ in a stringed instrument is something called vibrato. And vibrato just means to vibrate. So when I take a note and I don't vibrate it, it's a very flat sound. But if I just move my hands a little bit to vibrate the sound, it adds a different element to it. It rings a lot more. So that's called vibrato. Glissando means to glide, and I could either glissando up or glissando down. I used to play, well, back before the virus, I used to play in a lot of studio for movies, soundtracks, and I played a lot of horror movies, and horror movies employ a lot of that, so we spend a lot of time doing these slow glissandos up and down the string. They're really fun, but they're tiring. The next thing in the textbook is called a tremolo. Tremolo is just kind of what it sounds like. It sounds like trembling. Again, I play this a lot in some recordings, some movie studio or movie soundtracks. It kind of employs a sense of suspense. So what it means is, I don't know if you can see, but I just move my bow back and forth really, really quickly. And it has this kind of very tension kind of sound. The trill is basically you take two notes and you alternate really, really fast. So I'm trying to show you my fingers. So basically I'm fluttering between two notes. So that's another, again, tone color that you can do with stringed instruments. Double, triple, quadruple stops, that just means how many notes you play at the same time. So double stops is two notes at the same time. Triple stop is three notes. And then quadruple stop, which you don't see a lot because you can't really play four notes at the same time. It just ends up being like a chord. That's a quadruple stop, when you play all four strings in succession at the same time. Harmonics, I demonstrated this both in the pieces I chose to demonstrate the two various instruments. I did play harmonics at one time. Harmonics is a very interesting tone color. It has definitely a different type of sound than normal instrument playing. It's basically when you touch the string, I'm not actually pushing it down all the way, I'm just touching the string, and what that does is it produces a higher overtone. And with the harmonic, it has that very kind of ethereal, kind of hollow sound. And again, it's employed in a lot of film music because if you get a whole section of string players playing that, it has a very beautiful effect to it. So I know this is a lot of vocabulary words, and I don't expect you to know all of them, but just know that you can manipulate sound on a stringed instrument to make different timbres, different tone colors.